So, what can we learn from this game? We've had a good look at a couple of the uses of Reavers. We've had a good look at how they can be used in battle and to harass, especially if you are fighting from a position in which you are behind the enemy economically. Well, not even necessarily just economically, in terms of army, and the best way to get back into the game is to kill some of his probes so you can make stuff faster. Pretty cool. And we can also see the use of shuttle speed in running home to desperately try and defend all your stuff before you die entirely. So, a relatively useful game to have a look at there. A pretty good kind of standard example of the kind of thing you might expect to see on IC Cup. This guy was a pretty all-in-y style of player, but fortunately my superior tech choice trumped him and I was able to take the game off him. Alright, so very quickly let's have a bit of a think about that game. We saw Reavers used in a PvP situation where they were used as both a harassment unit and a unit to back up an army. We have seen that they do not function as an army on their own, not even two Reavers in a shuttle. Powerful though they are, will get destroyed by about 6 goons moving in on them and doing just vaguely effective micro. So Reavers, not good on their own, very good with an army, very good in the back of the enemy base. And they're all-round fantastic unit for defending, for attacking, as long as you can micro them. So quickly, before we move on to the next section, I'm going to talk very briefly about Reaver Micro. So you've noticed that you get your Reavers, you get your shuttle, you get their shuttle to pick up the Reavers so you can actually move around the map at a halfway decent speed. The thing about this is shuttles are very fast to pick off, and if you have 2 Reavers, 1 shuttle, and all the health on the shuttle goes down, you're going to lose everything within that shuttle, and that is going to be pretty much game over if it's in the early to mid game. So we have devised some very, very clever micro precepts in order to deal with this. Reaver Micro. Okay, let's go through a standard battle, a Reaver battle. You unload your Reavers. You're going to want them to You're going to want to unload them somewhere just behind your Dragoon line, and you're going to want to make sure Scarabs don't get stuck in all your Dragoons, because trust me, that can happen and is pretty horrible. Not that they kill your Dragoons, but they just end up floating around for a few seconds, then just pretending to explode, not actually doing any damage, and you've got to try again. By which time you've probably already lost the battle. So, you're going to want to place them just behind your Dragoon line. You're not going to want to place them in the same place because, and this is very crucial, if you place 2 Reavers next to each other and the enemy also has 2 Reavers, then he can shoot 2 Scarabs at one of your Reavers and do massive damage to both of them simultaneously. So once you've done that, you've unloaded them, you then think, right, cool, they're in a position to do damage. So you want to aim them at basically the middle Dragoon of the clump, so you're doing as much splash damage to everything around as possible. But should he start focusing down one of your Reavers, you're going to get your shuttle in there, you're going to pick that Reaver up, and you're going to move it further back so that he can't pick off the shuttle at the same time. So he started focusing down one of your Reavers, your shuttle comes in, picks it up, and carries on backwards. So he's not floating towards the enemy Dragoons, he's coming back behind your Dragoon line. So if he then tries to follow your shuttle in, your Dragoon's going to be doing massive damage and blocking him off at the same time from getting to your shuttle. So your Reavers will be safe and he will be getting a massive amount of damage received as well. So you're going to have to learn a few of the rules of that. Shuttle acceleration is a pretty crucial thing. This is why whenever a pro is microing a Reaver battle, the shuttle will be constantly moving backwards and forwards, because a shuttle does of course have an acceleration time, so if you keep it moving constantly, then it does not suffer from that affliction, and it's going to be able to instantly get in there, pick up your Reaver, and take it back to safety. So it'll take a bit of experimenting with that, but I'm sure you'll get the hang of it quite soon, and it's a really, really, really super handy thing to learn, especially in PvP where Reavers are an absolute staple of the matchup. The next section is only a brief one. We're going to take a quick look at the use of Reavers and harassment techniques in a professional game. This is a recent game, and I think it was Jangbi versus... what's that new guy called? Wookie. Jangbi versus Wookie. A really good up-and-coming player. Jangbi, of course, an old hand who suddenly decided to start playing well again recently, so we're hey for Jangbi. So we're going to move on and have a quick look at that game for the remainder of this video. Okay, so here we go. Shuttle moving across the map. The commentators are very keen to note that shuttle speed has just kicked in, making harassment far more effective. We can see an observer moving in there for Jangbi to make sure that is nothing that's going to prevent his harass. It's important to note that he saw those 2 Dragoons and decided he could take them on anyway, and we're going to see how powerful 2 Reavers are against Dragoons. 2 Dragoons are nothing whatsoever against 2 Reavers, and 1 Scarab goes off. The Dragoons decide to move in again and get creamed for their trouble. Big Scarab's going off, taking out a clump of probes, and he's able to pick them up and escape again before the bulk of the Dragoons gets in there. So we see a very strong example of how Reavers can get in there, even against 2 Dragoons rather, do plenty of damage and whip off out again with a good number of kills under their belt. And from that, Jangbi will have gained a good little bit of a mental advantage. He'll have made Wookiee slightly less sure of his defensive position, and he will have gained an economic advantage as well, of course. So Jangbi, I think, just decided to build a second shuttle. Now this isn't a build you want to make a standard part of your game, because this is a very specific strategy. But clearly he thinks he can do a large amount of damage with a second shuttle, and we're going to see how that works out for him. There we saw a DT heading out on the map for Wookiee. He's presumably going to try and catch Jangbi unawares and do some probular damage, which is a very cool thing to try and do if you think your enemy is going to be slightly unwary of what you're going to throw at him. A good idea. Jangbi generally building stuff, making an army, making probes. We see the 2 shuttles there diddling around on the edge of Wookiee, or near the edge of Wookiee's base. And heading on straight in, he has of course got an observer around there. He drops the 2 Reavers, drops a bunch of Zealots in order to trap the Dragoons, so he's going to be able to do masses and masses of damage to the Dragoons in the back of the base. And lots of stuff. Dark Templar just managing to get picked off. And the Reavers are now battering away at that Nexus. The Nexus is so defenseless. High Templar coming in to do literally nothing, and the Nexus falls. Some very intelligent harass from Jangbi, knowing that the Zealots could trap the Dragoons and that the Reavers could clear them up really easily. Dark Templar getting into the probe line here of Jangbi from Wookiee and doing rather a lot of damage. It is never a good idea to attack a DT with your probes unless it's literally the only option you have available. But a huge amount of economic damage obviously being dealt by Jangbi there, taking out the main Nexus of Wookiee's base. So basically all Jangbi has to do right now is keep macroing, because he has an extra Nexus and his troops are going to be vastly superior to dear Wookiees. Of course, until Wookiee has Psionic Storm also, Jangbi is going to have a massive army advantage. Pushing straight up the ramp here, dithering around for a second, dropping the Reavers. He needs to be careful there. We can see a good bit of Reaver micro, picking one up, dropping one down again, confusing the Dragoon AI. Not quite ready to push up that ramp yet. But no doubt he will be. He's sending those speed Zealots in first to take as much fire as possible. Dropping 2 Reavers in. Oh, some big Reaver Scarabs going off on Jangbi's speed Zealots, but it's not going to matter because he has a huge army advantage. GG from Wookiee. Jangbi victorious! This music I always find incredibly, remarkably bizarre. I'm going to turn it up for a second for you. It's like, I don't know if you've ever heard the band Rhapsody of Fire, but it's kind of like a Korean version of that, and it's really pretty odd, this vaguely operatic singing style. Okay, so quick roundup of what we saw there. We saw how effective Reavers are in dropping into a base, taking out Dragoons and taking out probes on the way. You really need plenty of stuff if you're going to be defending against 2 Reavers. It is not a job to be taken lightly. We also saw how a bit of a liberal application of Reaver harass can be used in order to uncountable damage. He was able to drop 2 Reavers and a bunch of Zealots into the back of Wookiee's base. The Zealots trapped the Dragoons whilst the Reavers blasted away at them, and he killed maybe 6 Dragoons in the back of that base there, which is a pretty major result in itself, and was able to then take down the Nexus, which is super cool and obviously put him in a great position to take the game. His timing there, he just waited until a couple of rounds of macro had passed. He knew he would have a big advantage at that point and was able to push straight on up the hill. Of course, there's a lot of things we didn't see in that game, but this is all about Reavers and harassment, so we did not really need to get any more detail around that. Okay, so I hope this episode has done an effective job of introducing the Reaver unit to you. You may have been vaguely aware of it already, but I hope that this has given you a slightly better idea on how it's used, some good ideas for micro, some good ideas for ways in which you can use it, and get the full money's worth for your unit. So this has been Elegant AOV with another wee little video guide on how to switch to Brood War from SC2, and I will see, well, I won't see you, but you will see me in the next video, which should be coming out absolutely as soon as possible. Thank you for watching.